Hello. I didn't ever think I would be making this video. I mean, I've been thinking of ways to word it, and it just, at this point, I don't even know. I'm just done. I've already had previous situations that just encouraged me to want to speak on the matter as best I can. And in this case, I'm not even speaking. I have questions I need asked because I genuinely just don't get how we went from being able to communicate any topic, any idea, any notion passively to now there are certain things that cannot be discussed, and to ask or speak on anything is just wrong. To mention things to certain people will cause a huge, huge outbreak, and things are getting legalized that saying certain things can cause trouble, and I want to know why. I want to know what is going on in the world that I love so much. Why is it that this is the way that things are? To put as a disclaimer, and I feel like this is a shame that I have to do it, but I care about you watching this. If you have a question or you want to answer, or you want to try to say that it's ridiculous of me to even begin to ask, it's fine. But I care. I don't hate anyone. I might disagree, but don't we all disagree on one thing or another? I think with that, I want to start with my first major question. What are the terminologies of diversity, equity, and inclusion? If you look at what the raw terminology of each one is, diversity is to recognize and to pinpoint the differences, make them special, not hold them as segregation or form of contempt, but to celebrate and rejoice in what makes each individual unique. Equity is everyone is treated the same, that there is no seen difference between them. We are all equally the same. We may differ in opinion, but we have the same value. A life is priceless, and as such, there should be no distinction between to segregate or divide. That is equity. And inclusion? To bring in and make someone feel a part, to make sure that no one is left out. That is inclusion. Am I wrong in what I am saying? To state that you want to diversify and make sure that the differences are known, but then to say in the same breath that everyone is to be held equal and your desires to make them equal. What does that say in raw terminology? If I am accurate in what I am saying, is this not automatically arguing with what you are trying to uphold? If you want to see the differences and honor the differences among individuals, then by all means do so. But if you want equity, then why are you glorifying the differences and making it seem like there are many different things out there that elevate some over others? Why is it that some people can say certain things and others cannot? Why is it okay to use racial or discriminatory terminologies amongst your own group if that is exactly what it is? It is degrading and bigoted remarks that were created in that regard. Why is it that we see diversity and equity being used and we are only seeing contention? My next question is, what does being phobic mean? In raw Latin, that means a fear of. But I know that this is used as a terminology to mark someone as bigoted. Why phobos? Why are you saying that saying something to someone else is fearful of a group? What is it? Why do you leave this marker on people who you deem to be phobic of a specific group of individuals? Just say that they're being bigoted. Why is it you need to call it out? Why do you need to say that they are afraid of you or your group in order to go over and seem like they are not as able to or allowed to convey a thought or opinion on something? Why is it that certain people are met with this sheer line of anger and bitter resentment for saying certain things? Are they not also entitled to an opinion? And why then do laws need to be made to prevent certain people from being talked to in a certain way, or to convey or change how things are presented to certain people? Does that not then go over and break what it means to be equal? Does that not mean that my opinion is now lesser because I agree or disagree with certain groups? Why is it then that there are laws being made in certain areas to go over and diminish what someone says because they are speaking out to a specific person who has a specific mindset? Yes, there are groups who will stand by their opinion tooth and nail. Do I agree with these people? Do I not agree with these people? Does it matter if I agree with anyone or not? Am I allowed to have my opinion? At that point, what is free speech? If a certain group can go over and say, you are not allowed to say anything to me, and again, I could be wrong. I'm asking. If a group can go over and say, well, you can't say anything to me. Your opinion is just wrong because I'm saying it. How is that fair and equitable treatment? Why can't people just have conversations discussing whatever topic they deem fit, and then going over and saying, well, I don't agree with you there? Yes, can there be times and topics where there are going to be arguments that will boil over? I can definitely agree. There are topics that can be very heated. I mean, look at sports games. A very trivial and minute detail. But as soon as you get two very dedicated fans of opposing teams, you're going to have an argument about what team is better. And honestly, what would happen if one was not allowed to say anything to the other? Is that going to be seen as fair? That one will be able to say whatever they want to and the other person gets walked on because their opinion is not as valued or as prized as the other person's? And I mean, that leads to my next two questions. What is truth and how do we find it? And given the current situation, if no one's willing to acknowledge certain things and it is seen as hateful or spiteful to go over and mention them, then how do we discuss and find truth if there's no form of conflict? If there's no opinion of right and wrong, how do we come across this common consensus? If there is no way to go over and begin to comprehend what other possibilities there could be, then why then do you say not to say anything? If conversation is the key to finding the truth, talking with someone else, exchanging knowledge, figuring out what the other person's opinion is, that is how we find truth. Am I not correct? Some of the largest disputes in history were resolved through communication. Why is it that communication now, when said in certain terminologies or in specific regards, is considered vile, demeaning, and absolutely hateful? I know that there are people who have said some pretty atrocious things about specific communities. I mean, case in point, regardless of what side you're on, let's just look at the Israel and Palestine war. There are people on both sides wishing the other side would die. Either way, that's not necessarily right to wish someone ill, but should we not be able to discuss each side peacefully? If you're pro-Palestine, then let's have a conversation. If you're pro-Israeli, then let's have a conversation. Not once should we be at each other's throats because we don't like what the other person has to say because one group thinks the other group is vile. And at the end of the day, why does it have to get to that point? If we're having a civil conversation, we should be able to discuss as human beings whether or not we think something is right or wrong. We should be able to discuss freely our opinions. But the second and last question that I really have is at that point, what is free speech? In today's society, what does it mean to be able to freely speak your mind? To go over and state that you have an opinion that something is right or wrong? The ability to voice that you do or do not like something or how something is being addressed? Where is it? Then how do we find it? Because I am sick and tired of seeing people be absolutely abhorrent to other people because they have an opinion that they feel is more valuable than that of another person's, and they use their status quo to go over and thrash them as violently as they can and go over and make them suffer. People getting to the point of being physical because they don't like being told something. Why do you not like being told something? What is it about what was said that has you all riled up? Why is it that no one can simply say, I don't agree, or I do agree, or something along those lines and someone isn't offended? I know for a fact that me asking these questions, everyone's going to be, well, are you against this group? Are you against that group? I have my opinions, but right now I want to know. I can't tell you how many communities I have seen get ripped to shreds, or have seen people who are supposed to be in places of power get ticked off because they don't like I said something, or they don't like someone else said something, even jokingly. I have seen people get mad over what seemed to be really dumb arguments, vain, pointless arguments, and they abused their power to silence the other person because they did not like what was going on. And I guess that's really what it is. I am tired of being someone who has gone through customer service, who's been in administrative positions before. I am sick and tired of seeing things not being able to be peacefully resolved because people could not keep their self-esteem in check. Either it be too low or too high. That they are arrogant and they cannot see or accept someone else even potentially being accurate. Or they feel so low about themselves that they choose not to say anything. They hold themselves in a position where they do not think they will ever be heard. And then what happens? When you have someone or a mentality that is so publicized, where you cannot have anything told to you because you do not like what has to be said. What then? What then? You're telling me that after all of the time that we've had on this planet as a species, as a group, whatever you want to say, that we cannot look to the past, genuinely look, and go over and say, this looks to be this way, that looks to be that way. Can we not for 5 seconds be able to passively just sit down and have a discussion without someone blowing up, without someone berating and bemoaning another? Can we have one person on any side who can be seen as an extremist step down from their position and be able to listen to another opinion for 5 seconds. What happened to the days where conversations can be had about any topic, and there was no fear of any entity whatsoever being able to sway these conversations? When was it that someone could be able to freely state their mind and they didn't have to worry about getting physically harmed because of what they had to say? When were those days? I would love to see that piece again. I would love to see a society globally where we are able to communicate as human beings to one another and be able to freely state our minds. It doesn't matter if you're right, doesn't matter if you're wrong, you should be able to state your opinion passively. Are there going to be disputes that get heated? Yes. Are there going to be situations where people are fed up with another person? Yes. Are there people out there who are biased? Yes. Can you denote entire groups of people for being biased? No. That's my opinion. To state because of one person's actions that everyone who fits a certain criteria is underneath that same mindset is a very dangerous ideology to hold on to latch onto, to set a precedence that some people are elevated over others, or that a minority or majority have a major influence on what can or cannot be discussed because of whatever reason. How is that fair? Once you force someone to do something, you automatically are wrong. Once you automatically demand that something happen a certain way, as if you have control or say over someone else's mind or mindset or opinion to the point where you will not allow anyone to say anything, you automatically are wrong. To remove the ability to discuss freely is to remove the ability to discern, to remove the ability to converse openly about any topic is to remove the core of what it is to have your own opinion. To silence the mouths of those you disagree with is to silence the freedom of that individual. Every country allows their citizens to have some form of opinion, but everyone kind of knows you don't say anything about your government. If you have an opinion that's not commonly accepted, you keep it to yourself. Why is this? Why is it that we have to live in a society, even online, where there are certain topics that are viewed as red letter topics that no discussion can ever be had? If we are really able to discuss anything, then why is it that certain things are not being discussed? Why is it certain topics are viewed as bad just because people don't like it? And I know I genuinely am concerned that we are not able to get to a point to where we can communicate freely. If we cannot discuss things openly and with a relative open mind, be able to discuss things that we find interesting or disagree with, then we'll find that tensions are going to continue to rise. There is going to be a point in time where it's not a you can choose. It's going to be chosen for you. It's going to be a time where we are not going to be able to have an opinion. Nowhere will there be someone who can think for themselves, who can state what they have on their mind, to truly express how they feel. and that anyone who disagrees or does not match is automatically going to face a whole world of pain and suffering and heartache. I have seen people go over and rank people for anything. Anything. I've seen people who have ranked on people in the LGBTQ. I've seen people in the LGBTQ rank on people who are not in that mindset. I've seen people rank on Palestine. I've seen people rank on Israel. And I've seen a lot of people take a very nasty and negative approach to it. I have seen people go over and be absolutely downright revolting in how they've handled situations. And I've also seen people who are able to decently communicate with one another in any side, any situation. So, can we start here with the questions that I have asked? What is diversity, equity, and inclusion? And are they contrasting in any way? What does it really mean to be phobic, and should we be changing that terminology to be what it really is, to describe a hateful or vengeful personality? Why do laws need to be made to defend specific ideologies, viewpoints, or any form of mindset that someone could have? How do we find truth? And what free speech do we have? That's all for now. I want to thank you all for listening to me, and I'm genuinely curious to see what everyone has to say. What are your opinions? For you specifically, what is your answer to these questions? And if you want to talk about it, by all means, feel free to. As I said, that's all for now. Goodbye.